This is Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details. Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Between the Uprights. I am here with Chris. My name is Matt. And just real quick before we get into all this Week 12 NFL discussion, be sure to subscribe to the channel for us. We are just starting this thing up here at Between the Uprights. We love football. We love the NFL. And if you're seeing this, you probably do too. So if you like what you see, hitting that subscribe button would be extremely clutch for us. We would greatly appreciate it. And thank you in advance. Now, let's go to the nation's capital as the Washington Commanders lost a bad one last Sunday to the Dak Prescott-less Dallas Cowboys on an absolutely wild fourth quarter that we saw two returns, basically another Hail Mary from Jaden Daniels, this time to Terry McLaurin, but then an Austin Seibert missed PAT right after that seals their fate and moves the Commanders to 7-5. And having lost three straight games, they are now sitting as the 7 seed in the NFC playoffs. This defense is struggling to stop the run, and Jaden Daniels, after a hot start, he got banged up with that rib injury, and he hasn't been the same since. But that brings us to this discussion, Chris. I'm going to kick it to you. Did we prematurely crown Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, or will they bounce back to finish this season?
As far as if they're going to bounce back, I can see it. Like I said, like right now they're sitting at the 7th seed in the NFC. So right now they're still in the playoff run, right? But to be 100%, Matt, remember last week, right? When you said we had this conversation about the Broncos, and the Broncos, they already hate us, but I'm still going to bring this up. So, and it was a positive point. So you made a point of saying if they didn't win another game, they didn't even make it to the playoffs, that they were still in a good spot because they were already exceeding most of the NFL's and all the NFL fans' expectations for the 2024 season. So I'm going to jump on that wagon, but about the Commanders, because that's exactly how I feel right now.
Sure.
I'm not going to necessarily call what they have right now going as far as a downfall. I feel like it's still a new team. You have a new head coach. You have a new offensive coordinator. I'm pretty sure you have a new defensive coordinator. You have a rookie QB who's still kind of learning his way. And as amazing as he's been, he's still a rookie. So he's still going to have those struggling pains. And so also when I look at their team right now, and I looked over their their games, so to speak, excuse my language. And so when I look at it, I look at where their wins were, right? So they won against the Giants, who are already struggling. They won against the Bengals, who are also already struggling and still continue to struggle. They won early against the Cardinals, who were struggling at that time, are now kind of starting their footing there. And the teams that they lost to were already big teams, right? They already had head coaches who had already been there, for several years. They had kind of this almost like they had their same starting group for the most part, and those are who they lost to, which to me makes sense because those are always going to be contenders. They're already kind of in the realm and ready to go when the season starts. You're virtually brand new. So I'm not all that surprised, nor am I all, upset about where they're at right now. Because right now you have a rookie QB in Jaden Daniels who will more than likely flourish in the next couple years. Hopefully, if he doesn't turn into, the second year of a CJ, unfortunately. But as of right now, Jaden Daniels has been, for the most part, amazing. And even in that last game, right? The game last week, he was still making plays and trying, the thing is he has a toughness, right? And you can see his want to win, and you can see the way that he brings in. We were just talking about not that long ago about Brock Purdy. Like, to me, that's where that difference is. Because I feel like Jaden Daniels, when the game is on the line, he wants that ball. And you see that he's going to make as many plays as he possibly can to get that done. Where you get to a Purdy who you need things to work correctly in order for that to happen, in order to even make it a possibility to win that game. Whereas Jaden Daniels is out here just throwing balls, getting his own. At the end of the day, if he needs a touchdown, he's going to try to get it himself. That reminds me of another individual who just happens to be in the MVP race, and a Josh Allen who does the exact same thing and who just did the exact same thing to the Chiefs. Exact same thing. You need the ball, give me the ball, I got it, I'll take care of it. That's what he's giving you. So I'm not necessarily concerned about where they go for the remainder of the year. If they make the playoffs, amazing, because no one else gave them a shot in hell to even get
Mhm.
there. So when I was looking over things earlier, and if I bring it up here shortly, I believe they were set to be. I think most people had them winning about 6 games, right? So their floor was 5, and their ceiling was 7. They've already met that, right? And
Yeah.
they're only halfway through. They're only halfway through the season, and you're talking about a brand new quarterback, a rookie quarterback that has already set that bar that high. Nobody gave the Commanders a shot in hell to do anything this year. I feel like they put them in that same realm, unfortunately, as the Raiders, as the team that I love so much, unfortunately, in the
Yeah.
Patriots.
Yeesh.
So right, they didn't say Giants. They're all kind
Mhm.
of in that same realm, and that's what they kind of expected because that's what we've come to expect from that specific team. Um, I think they're just going through struggling pains. I think their defense needs to step up. I think they've kind of been falling off because if I'm not mistaken, when I looked at that team start of the year, first couple games, they seemed to me legitimate, like a top 5 defense. And if you play fantasy, you know that because I lost a lot of games because of them. So they were balling on the defensive side, and now that seems the last couple weeks that has kind of tailored down. Now it might be due to injury. There's always going to play at this point, at this point in the season. So I don't think necessarily we should look at it as, if we crown them too soon. If anything, I think we were all amazed, maybe amazed too soon, but at the same time, like, worthy, absolutely worthy because of what he was doing at that young of an age and just now getting into the NFL and as much as he's been able to put on. So I'm amazed with them. I do expect them to probably win a couple going forward and to see where they're at the end of the year. I'm excited to see if they even get to the playoffs, and if they do, I will still be just as amazed. But no matter what, at the end of the day, it's hard to combat that they've at least already kind of won over the people who didn't give them a shot in hell at the beginning of the season.
No doubt. And your point there is a good one as far as making the comparison with them and the Broncos. Like, again, we didn't expect much. I saw like a few pundits on the internet kind of pick the Commanders as like a sleeper for the playoffs. But again, it was pretty much common knowledge. Like, hey, they're going to be worse than the Eagles. They're going to be worse than the Cowboys. They might end up being solid. They might, like you said, get their 6-7 wins, but there's not a lot to be expected of them. But to me, that is why I believe they were prematurely crowned once they started going off, is because we saw Jaden Daniels doing what he was doing, and it was incredible. It was amazing. He looked like the rookie CJ Stroud part 2. Like, that's what he looked like. He was going crazy. He was doing his thing, and everybody was freaking out about it. My issue was one of the things that you just said at the very beginning was they weren't doing it against anybody. The 4 best teams to me that they've played this season are the Buccaneers, are the Ravens, are the Steelers, and the Eagles. And you want to know what happened in those 4 games? They lost. You want to know what happened in all of the other games where they played against bad, or in Arizona's case, mediocre teams? They won. Like, they did really good against bad and mediocre teams. And then we saw last week, they lost a really bad one to the Cowboys. So for me, I think we did prematurely crown the Commanders because you talked about it. The strength of victory, their best win was against the Cardinals, and they're the 5th worst strength of victory in football. They have the 5th worst strength of victory in football. We talked about the Miami Dolphins earlier having the 3rd worst strength of victory in football. The Commanders are 5th. So again, they haven't beat anybody good as well. So, and to me, part of the reason why they haven't beat anybody good, because good teams know how to beat them. And you know how you beat the Commanders? You just run the ball. You just run the ball against them, and you're going to beat them because their defense cannot stop the run. They're the 4th worst in the NFL against the run. They give up 145.5 yards per game. For context, Saquon Barkley rushes for 126 yards per game, and he's on pace for about a 2,000-yard season. So they allow 20 yards more than that per game. So they are not a good defense against the run, and they allow the most yards per carry to running backs this season as well. 5.8 yards per carry they allow per 2 running backs. So they get absolutely crushed on the ground, and that's surprising for a defense that has a pretty good linebackers with Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu there in Washington. So and then too, I don't trust their remaining schedule as far as if they want to make a run down the stretch, because it doesn't look super tough when you look at it on its surface as far as looking at the teams go. You see Titans, Saints, Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. It doesn't look that tough. But from the comment that I just made about, them struggling against running backs, what I see there is Tony Pollard, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, and Bijan Robinson. And when you look at it from that perspective, you say, okay, with how much their run defense struggles, maybe they might have a little bit more trouble than we think down the stretch here. So I think they may be in trouble for this final playoff spot, especially because there has been a big narrative going around about Cliff Kingsbury and his struggles late in seasons as far as the offensive coordinator for the Commanders goes. So I think he could potentially start slowing down. It looks like Jaden Daniels, especially after that injury, is slowing down a little bit as well. And so I think for them this season, they're going to end up competing for that final wild card spot. And they're going to be competing for it with basically 3 out of the 4 NFC West teams, because right now they're all either 5 or 6 wins in the NFC West, and one of the 2 NFC South teams, because both the Falcons and the Bucks either have 5 or 6 wins as well. And I say 3 of the 4 and 1 of the 2 because obviously one of those teams has to win the division, and then the other ones are going to be fighting for the wild card. So when it comes down to it, though, how I think it's going to play out, I think the Bucks are going to end up winning the NFC South because their schedule is very light. It's Carolina, the Raiders, the Chargers are a tough game, but then it's Dallas, Carolina again, and the Saints. So I think the Bucks are going to end up winning the NFC South. And what I think is going to happen is I think that 7th and final playoff spot is going to come down to Week 17. It's Falcons and it's Commanders in Week 17. And to me, I trust the more veteran team, that being the Atlanta Falcons, than I do the Washington Commanders in that scenario. So, like you said, Chris, I think it would, even if they miss the playoffs, say they go 8-9, 8-9, 9-8, and they miss the playoffs, I think that's a huge building block for the Commanders and them to kind of vault themselves forward. But I do think we prematurely crown them because people were talking about them as a legit contender early in the season after them just beating up on nobodies, and I think that was kind of a step too far in my opinion.
I would definitely say if there's anybody who really were already crowning them as far as like, oh yeah, they're Super Bowl standing. I don't know where you get that from then, because it's hard to jump. Maybe it's me, because I am very ill when it comes to jumping on a train too early. And I've done that with Joe, with the conversations about the Steelers. I was not jumping on that train. I'm still happy I did not jump on that train. It takes a lot for me to be like, yeah, I'm absolutely in. I think they are in.
Me too.
I will be 100%. I do feel like the Ravens have shown a little bit more than what I expected, to be honest, as far as their defense is concerned. The way they showed up last night. I've had some concerns about their defense in particular, and as far as how far they were going to get because of that. So I will jump on that train, and I would say I do feel like the Ravens are probably a nasty group that you're going to have to face going forward. But when it comes to the Commanders, there was nothing about them that made me believe 100% like, yeah, I can see them definitely playoffs, championships. Like, there's no way in hell I'm going to start them off with a brand new team, brand new quarterback, brand new head coach, knowing what typically happens throughout the season. I'm not jumping on that train until I see like, okay, there's no way that you can actually just say it's not possible. So yeah, if they jumped on early, I apologize, but I will gladly welcome you back.
Well, my thing is like I'm sure everybody else is watching this too. We're the same as you. We're just on here talking about football. We love football, and we love we like listening to football. We love talking about football. That's why we do this. But I go on and I watch a bunch of these shows too, where they go on, they talk about football. First Take, First Things First. All those other shows. I watch all those type of shows, right? And again, I remember the narratives when they were 7-2. It's like, oh, this Commanders team's really going to compete, right? And again, to your point, Chris, I'm the same way. Like, I don't like. I stick to my opinions until I know for a fact they're going to be wrong, because I know how these things play out a lot of the time. It's like you think something's right away, and then sure enough, a few games down the road, you're like, wow, that was wrong, And this kind of goes to, this is going to be a separate rant, completely different from the Commanders topic. So apologies, Joe. This is like, people just try to be first on everything, like people just want to be the first one to say something. So they're going to come out and say something, even if they don't already believe it, right? Just because they want to be first, right? And they'll switch up on their previous opinion just because they want to be first, right?
Quickly.
And
gosh.
and they switch up quick, right? And again, we're seeing how that plays out when you kind of do that, when you do that first, right? We see kind of how for example, the rookie quarterback class of 2023, CJ Stroud comes out 2023, balls the hell out. Bryce Young comes out 2023, is terrible, right? And now we see this year, right? CJ Stroud's kind of fading back to the pack, and Bryce Young's looking a little bit better. And now everybody's like, oh, did we jump the gun a little bit? Yes, you jumped the gun a little bit. Like, obviously you jumped the gun a little bit because you saw rookie quarterbacks play 15 games their rookie year and decided to make a decision on them, you know? So we're seeing the same thing through literally at the start of this year with the rookie quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels comes out hot. Everybody's like, oh, he's the MVP of the league. And now he's struggling a little bit. It's like, oh, is he even the best rookie quarterback in his class? We see the same thing with Caleb Williams. He struggles to start the year. He comes back. He plays well. He comes back. He struggles again. Now the last couple games he's played well again, and everybody doesn't even know what to do with themselves. Bo Nix struggles to start off the year. Now he's playing great. Everybody's like, oh, is Bo Nix really the guy? You know, so again, people can't make up that. People just want to be first on everything. Like they just want to be first on everything, and they don't realize that things need to actually develop and take place. So yeah, I think that's what happened with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels in this situation, is that everybody just tried to jump the gun and be first, when in reality you should have just looked at the evidence and been like, well, they're not really beating that many good teams, and you know, and they're taking advantage of their light schedule. So yeah, I think we did prematurely crown the Commanders because everyone has a tendency to be first, and they want to be first, and they want to be right, and then it ends up biting you in the ass. So how's that working out for you?
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.